What's going on right now? The Coma cutting class is a side-scrolling survival horror game with a bit of adventure flair to it, created by Devespresso Games. It follows the story of a young man, Young-ho, in secondary school in Korea during finals week. He arrives at school late after attempting a last-minute late-night study session to find that one of his classmates has attempted suicide and is being taken away by an ambulance. After getting the details from his friend, Seiho, Young-ho departs the class to take his finals and very promptly falls right asleep. He wakes up and everything is dark. Assuming that he simply was allowed to sleep through every single final and the entirety of the school day well past closing, he sets out to try and leave, only to find that things are, in a few words, not quite right. Thus begins the player's journey to discover the true meaning behind this dark reflection of Young-ho's school and, hopefully, find a way to escape. Mechanically, the Coma is a mostly standard survival horror game. You're trapped with a killer that you can't fight and it's hunting you down. To progress, you'll explore practically the entire school, searching for clues that will lead you to the next key or passcode needed to progress to the next area. Sometimes these clues will give you a question mark on your map, like if you need to check a specific room. Most of the time, though, you're left to dig around. Thankfully, the areas are varied, and it seems like you can find different notes if you explore areas multiple times after certain marks of progress. The system used for the killer is simple but brilliant. Not only is the killer smart, but they get steadily more and more aggressive as the game progresses. Thankfully, if you pay attention, you usually have pretty fair warning of when the killer is on the same floor as you. Off in the distance, you'll hear footsteps from where they are, and the killer will growl when they enter and leave rooms. At least I think that's what that noise is. It's honestly a little bit hard to tell. Sprinting or using your flashlight will make it easier for the killer to find you, so it's best to be careful and pay as much attention as possible to the noises going on around you. If you get spotted, the killer will start sprinting at you with lethal intent. Use your legs and get to a hiding spot as fast as you can, and be quick about it. Once the killer is off your trail, the music will die back down and they'll leave the room. I'm a huge fan of this system. The footsteps and strange noises the killer makes add so much to the already frightening atmosphere present in the Coma, and the chases in the later stages of the game can end up being quite long and very intense. There are status effects like poison or bleeding, but I'm not 100% sure how they work. I think poison just makes you have one less heart until you use an antidote, and I think bleeding makes you take extra damage when you get hit until you use a bandage. It'd be nice if these effects were actually explained, or better explained if I missed it, because I'm honestly not sure if I'm explaining these correctly. There are save points scattered around the world in the form of chalkboards. As I progressed through the game, I noticed that each new building had less and less chalkboards than the last. This is a really cool way to up the difficulty while keeping it in theme, and it also, it's something that the player will notice as they continue exploring and will pretty directly affect their decisions without feeling unfair. It also adds on to how dangerous the killer is growing to be without making them a million times more aggressive or something. One major problem the game has is that reading notes or speech doesn't actually pause anything going on in the game, so you can, say, inspect an object and get attacked while reading it, cutting off the text. Normally, you can just lose the killer and come back, but sometimes this happens with objectives that only display text once, and then you're lost. You can still look through your items and give yourself a hint, but it can really throw you off the path that you're on and really break the flow. While it definitely adds to immersion and pressure in the game, it can be pretty frustrating. Another issue I have is that you can only do some things with the mouse, but you can do everything with the keyboard. The game is pretty clearly made to be played with either a controller or only the keyboard, but full mouse controls would not only prevent some of the confusion that I had, but it would also add a lot to the game. One of the weirdest inconsistencies is that you can select an item in your bag with the mouse, but you can't use it. There are keys displayed on the bottom of the screen in the menu, but you can't click on them to do the thing that you want to do. Those are really the only issues that I found in the Coma, though. The game's a decent length, and with branching paths based on your choices and a true ending that I have no idea how to get, it has some pretty strong replay value. There's a lot more to the game, but I'm trying not to spoil much. What I'd love to talk about next, though, is the insight that the game's director and artist Mino gave me into the game's symbolism and inspiration. Mainly due to how important high school and education are in Korean culture, Minho often found himself at school during odd hours of the night. Despite how frequently he was there, it was never something that he got used to, and it maintained an eerie, frightening atmosphere throughout his youth thanks to the empty and dark hallways and classes. This led to school being the main setting in source of inspiration for the Coma, lending an enormous amount not only to the atmosphere but also to the symbolism present within the game. One of the most interesting things about the Coma is the way it handles its characters. Every single named character, their actions and attitude, and the way the game world itself behaves are all tied to some hidden meaning that's largely left up to players to interpret on their own. Something that honestly surprised me is how little the symbolism is actually tied to folklore and legends. In talking with Minho, I learned that while there are certainly a lot of ghost stories in Korean culture and a lot of tropes that would fit with the story and be easy to use, the majority of the game's inspiration and symbols actually come from Minho's own time as a student and the fears and struggles he faced as a young man. Minho also told me that another reason the Coma is set in high school is that many players are either going through high school or will have already completed it, meaning that there's a good chance players will feel or make some kind of connection to their own experiences in high school. I found this true myself and managed to find some pretty familiar experiences involving a couple of the characters. The game's art, sound, and altogether atmosphere are well crafted and make it easy to get sucked into the world that you're in. The mechanics themselves, while fairly standard, work very well with the story presented, and the objectives given to the player are never tedious thanks to how frequently the tone can change from creeping around scared to sprinting and screaming your head off. All of that and the incredible symbolism woven into the Coma's DNA make this a unique and solidly built experience. You can pick up the Coma cutting class for $10 on Steam. If you like horror games or even just incredible stories that are open to interpretation, then this is one for you. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Indie Bytes. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please remember to leave a like and subscribe for more. If you have any indie games that I should check out, then please shoot them my way. You can leave a comment down below, or you can drop me a line on Twitter. My handle's @forkh, or you can shoot me an email at fork4h@gmail.com. I'll see you next time. Bye!